impression of me. And then if you want, I can do a little rundown of how we record at Funimation and then go for questions, or I can just do questions if everybody feels like they're already familiar with it. So let's see hands for a rundown of how we do it at Funimation. Okay, all right. So my name is Colleen Clinkenbeard, and I'm a voice actress, script adapter, ADR director, line producer for Funimation. And you probably know me as Monkey D. Luffy in One Piece, or Gohan and Android 18 in DBZ Kai, or Yuko in Holic, or Riza Hawkeye in Full Metal Alchemist. I also directed half of the original series of Full Metal Alchemist, and I wrote several of the episodes. And I directed Panty and Stocking. Scanty in that. I directed Steins Gate, which is my new all-time favorite anime. Have to check that out. Fractal I directed just recently. And so basically the way it works, we no longer have line producers at Funimation, so I'll skip that step. How it works now is the director is given a show, and that means that you have to do all of your research on the show, watch the whole thing in Japanese, and look online and see what you can find out about it online, so you're fully prepared to delve into the universe of the show. Then you call together auditions. You can either call a general audition, which means anybody can come in and sign up, or you can call specific people into audition for specific roles. It just depends on what kind of show it is, how high profile it is usually. Once you call auditions in, people come in and sit in the lobby and wait for auditions, and there's little binders, which tells you a blurb about what the show is about, and then it shows you a picture of each character that's being auditioned for. And under the picture of the character, there are a bunch of lines taken directly from the scripts for that character. And when you come in to audition for the director, you're going to give your interpretation of what that picture looks like. You just move straight on through the lines and give them what you think that looks like, it sounds like. And from there, they can tell you, okay, well, we're thinking a little bit more of a nerdy character, or maybe that's a boy voice, but it needs to be raspier, that kind of thing. And you cast your show. Once you've cast your show, you move into production, which usually we have about 4 weeks to get 6 episodes done. We're given 4 to 6 episodes at a time, and you record one actor at a time. That's something that's a little bit different that not everybody realizes. We don't record with the whole cast in a room talking back and forth to each other. We record one person at a time because we're dubbing. And because we're dubbing, that means that the timing really, really matters. We don't just get to do whatever timing we feel like. We actually have to match the mouth flaps, as we call them, the mouth movements. And it would be impossible to get an entire room full of people to get it right all on one take. That's never going to happen. So, if I'm the first person who's recording as an actor, I come in and there's nothing else in that episode other than the music and sound effects, if I'm lucky. So it's just me talking to empty air. I get to see the video, I get to see the script, so I can see the other people's mouths moving, but I don't hear them. Usually, in fact, all the time, we watch a scene in Japanese, so you get the idea of what the original cast did, and it kind of lets you know how heightened the circumstances are. It lets you know whether you're really, really angry at somebody, or it's just a normal conversation, or maybe it's a military sting, so you're all being kind of quiet. And you watch it all in Japanese, and then you go through and record it. We record with the 3 beep system, which means that when I have a cue coming up, I hear beep, 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 and I record on the 4th imaginary beep. It just lets me know when that mouth first starts to open, the frame, down to the 100th of a second, when the mouth starts to open. And that's our writers' jobs, to let us know when that happens. They time code the whole series. It's very tedious. So that's the basic gist. I know that was a really quick, just like 3-minute explanation, but that just lets you ask questions about what parts of that you're interested in, because I never know if you want to talk more about the writing or the acting, so I'll just leave it up to you. Was I talking too fast?
No.
Okay. Yes.
So I actually have 2 questions.
Okay.
My first question is, so you're saying that you record, like, you're basically by yourself, just working with yourself. Now, does it ever get difficult? Because let's say you're having a conversation with a character, and you react one way, but the other character, because you're not recording, they act another way, and then that would kind of mesh differently. So let's say you record, and then someone else comes for recording later. Are they going to listen to how you recorded it,
Yes.
so they know how exactly to react to your reactions?
It actually builds like that in layers, and part of it is the director's job to know how heightened the circumstances are for the one scene. So when I get that first actor in as a director, I make sure that they are where I want the whole scene to be. And it's my job to make sure that those two people sound like they're talking to each other in the end. So that's really what a director does. That's our main job, is to make sure that it sounds cohesive and it sounds like they were recorded at the same time. So the first actor records to empty air, and then the second actor has that first actor in. And then the third actor has both of those actors in. So it builds in layers, and you never know if you're going to be coming in at the beginning of a contract and be recording to a vacuum, or if you're going to be coming in at the end and it'll be almost fully produced and you get to just respond to other people. That's the best.
And my second question is, so you've directed and you've voice acted. Do you have a preference? Like, which one do you prefer doing more, and which one do you have more of a passion for?
Definitely voice acting. Directing is fun, but it's a lot of micromanagement, and it's very intellectual. And it takes a lot of concentration, so it's more tiring to me. Even though physically the voice acting is more tiring, mentally by the end of a directing day, I'm exhausted. And I do that now 7 hours a day, every week. So I would say voice acting is my favorite, followed by line producing, followed by directing, followed by writing.
With voice acting, like, did you go right into voice acting, or did you do like a bit of theater or like play stuff where you had to interact with people and kind of break that fourth wall?
I think what you're asking, I've been an actor all my life. Since I was 12, I was an actor. I've been in theater, and I actually have a degree in a BFA in acting from Florida State. So I've always been an actor. And then I was in a play with Laura Bailey, who became my best friend. And she plays Kid Trunks in DBZ and Lust and Full Metal Alchemist. She actually is the one who brought me up to the studio and introduced me and tried to get me an audition. So I knew somebody, and that's how I got into it, but I was already an actor before I got there.
In your past experience with the voice actors or yourself, do you ever find that you've become typecast for a particular character, and does that work with you or against you? Do you ever try to...
That's a very good question.
Try to want to be reinvented into something different?
He asked if we ever get typecast and whether that works with us or against us, and if we ever want to break the mold. And the answer to all of that is yes. We get typecast all the time. When I first started, I got typecast as the leading lady, the young, innocent, go-get-em leading lady, like a Claire in Kitty Grade. And gradually my voice, I was able to get a lower voice going, and so I got typecast as all of the big-breasted, tough military chicks. And that continues to this day. I frequently, like, anytime you look through an audition book, if there's somebody with big boobs, it's like, well, that's what they want me to read for. And then I think people think I get typecast as the young boy, but that doesn't happen all the time because Luffy is so popular that I think that's all people hear. Like, if I do another little boy voice, people hear Luffy instantly because it's the same vocal cords doing it. So it can both work for and against you. It works for me in the sense that if a director sees one of those large-breasted military women, that immediately comes to their mind, and so that's great because that means they're calling me in for that. It can work against me because that means that if they have another character that might be a larger role, they might be typecasting me against that. They might not think of me for something else. And I absolutely want to try to break the mold. I always want to push and try new voices, and I'm always really happy when I get to do something different, something that I haven't done before. But it's anime, so a lot of the characters are all the same. So there isn't that much to do.
I was wondering, because we know that Funimation isn't the only one that does dubs and stuff. Is there any hostility between other voice actors from other companies, or is it just one big company?
I don't think there's any hostility between voice actors. I think we're all really excited when we get to meet somebody from another company, and we've all met through these conventions. So I know a lot of LA actors or New York actors, and every time I see Veronica Taylor, she and I are both like, oh, excited to see you again. I've never worked with a woman, but it's so fantastic to see her, and we love each other. But I think there is some rivalry between studios. People who produce or direct, or the owners of the studios, I think there's some sort of rivalry there just because they're competing for business. And because we share actors. People from ADV or whatever it's called now will come and work for Funimation, or Bang Zoom will come and work for Funimation, and that, I think there's some amount of, we feel like we have ownership over these actors that we created, and you don't. Yes?
Yeah, what do you find is easier, doing a higher pitched earlier voice or a lower, as you put it, well endowed?
Early in my career, I would have said the higher pitched was much easier, and now the lower pitched is far, far, far easier. It was really hard for me to get as low as Hawkeye is in the first series when I did her, and now I have to bring my voice up to play Hawkeye because I've lowered it for Yuko, and I got so used to going that low that coming up a little bit is like, oh, that was low before? That's hilarious. And I can't anymore get to the really young girls. Not realistically. I do it sometimes, like with Fairy Tale when Urza had young Urza. That's still me, and it's not like an effect on my voice or anything. But to me, to my ears, that I would cast Bria. Like that sounds like somebody should be doing it who it's easier for them. But that doesn't mean it's not fun. I'd love to get to play those roles.
Who would you say that out of the characters you've done, you enjoyed doing the most? Like you felt they were like you the most?
I felt like they were me the most?
Yeah.
Okay, those are two different questions.
Oh.
I think the one that feels the most realistic to me, hopefully not because she's a bitch, is Mitsuki in Rumbling Hearts.
Yeah.
Just because that series is really a slice of life series. It's not about guns in space. You know, I'm not a teenage boy pirate made of rubber. I'm just playing a girl who's having relationship trouble. So it felt extremely realistic, and it felt like I could just be myself. And in those instances, it sometimes feels more like acting, like real juicy, I get to act, instead of putting on this voice. And so I really relish those roles. I like that a lot. Having said that, though, my favorite role that I do is Monkey D. Luffy, just because he's so much fun. He hurts, and we have a love-hate relationship, because if he's screaming, I hate him. But if he's not screaming, he's my favorite.
You said when you're doing research for stuff overseas, are you able to use the studios from Japan, or you get footnotes or any help from
We
them?
get some communication from the studios in Japan. I don't have direct links to them, so it's not like I can talk to the creator and be like, hey, what were you thinking with this character? But if I have a real question, like, is this character, I'm trying to think of an explanation, is this character related to this character? If I really need to know that, because the writers are starting to take it down to it looks like they're sisters, and I don't know that they really are, then I can ask the brand manager who's responsible for basically everything to do with that property. I can ask them to ask the Japanese producers. So there is that line open, but it's only available if it's a really important question.
If you don't mind, I just want to ask one more.
Sure.
Just the emergence of World Wide Web and file sharing and all of that. I wanted to know if I could just take your 2 cents. I know that it's obviously hit and actually killed a lot of the American dubbing companies. Just on your overall comments, and is there either a decline or perhaps a citizen to stay in the industry and look for something else just because it's so hard to...
Piracy is going to be an issue for all of us in this industry for a really long time until somebody comes up with a way to solve that problem. Funimation, I think, has been the best of all the anime companies, of all the dubbing companies. Funimation has done the best job of rolling with the punches and learning from other production companies outside of the anime industry. And I think we've put things up on Hulu, we've put things on even on YouTube. We've started the Funimation site where you can go and actually watch entire episodes. And they're making sure that they stay in touch with what kind of ad revenue you can make. So rather than relying solely on the DVD sales, they're finding ways to make money even though people are pirating their information, because people are always going to go toward the venue that is easiest and cheapest. And if we are actually giving away our product, they have no reason not to go to our site because it's going to be the highest quality. So if we can get them to go to that site and then sell ad revenue, then that's a way of making money off the product even though it's not being sold. So I think Funimation is rolling with the punches the best, but that being said, it has certainly hurt us. It's even hurting Japan right now, actually. Funimation is running into the problem where people in Japan are buying our DVDs of their shows because they're cheaper. So obviously that's a huge issue. If a company in Japan isn't going to want to sell us their stuff because they don't want us to be making more money off of it than they are, then we're going to run into really big problems. So now that's a new thing that they have to look into. It's just never ending. And they really have to hire people who have a good grasp on that and are hip with what's going on in the world.
You've done a lot of like voice acting and directing on a lot of really good shows. But if there was like one show you wanted to voice act and direct on that you haven't, what show would that be?
I was excited when Sailor Moon, I think, would be my choice of show that we haven't done that I would love to do. I'd love to direct it. I'd love to be in it. And I know that there were rumblings that Funimation might get it. That is not right now happening. That doesn't mean it won't ever happen, because the reason there were rumblings is because we were looking into it. There was a possibility. But things have happened and it just isn't working out at the moment. So I hope that someday Funimation gets it and I get it and I get to cast myself in it. Not as the lead, but.
Just on that same note there, in Japan they're getting ready to do a new Sailor Moon series.
They're doing a new Sailor Moon, which could help or could hurt our case. I'm not sure which. Yes.
When you're doing a show that's really brutal like Rin, is the mood in the booth different, or is it just sort of the same thing as usual?
I prefer the mood of the booth to be different. I would really like it if I'm doing a serious scene, I like for there to be a serious atmosphere, because it's really difficult to go from laugh, 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 laugh to, oh my god, I'm dying. So I would prefer it. That's not always the case. A lot of times actors feel they have the need to lighten the atmosphere in the booth so that you don't get depressed, or because they don't want you to not have a good time while you're recording. So everybody has their own way of looking at it, I think. Some people want to lighten the atmosphere so you don't leave feeling like you want to kill yourself. And I tend to want to keep it dark if it's dark, because that helps the performance, I think.
Just curious, any other projects from Funimation you can talk about that haven't already been advertised on the website?
I'll never be able to talk about, none of us will ever be able to talk about anything that you can't have access to already.
Oh.
So if it's announced on the website, we can talk about it sometimes. If the cast hasn't been announced, we're not allowed to talk about the cast. So I'll answer that question for everybody ever. Yeah.
When it comes to like getting your voice trained and like preparing yourself, if you are thinking of going into voice acting, would radio be a good kind of starting point?
I think that radio is a really good place to put yourself just as a voice actor to make money. I think that probably makes you more money than almost any voice acting out there if you get the right gig. But I do think that if you get too much into radio voice, it can really hurt your acting, your voice acting. You have to really make sure that you draw the line between this is me selling something and this is me acting and being real. Because they're two very different things. So we pull in radio personalities every now and again because we think, you have such a great voice. And you'll pull them in, and then it turns out that they sound like this all the time. So you have to be careful, but yeah, it's good experience. And I definitely suggest not pinning yourself into, I have to be an anime voice actor, because oh my god, that's not gonna happen. Even the anime voice actors, we do other stuff. You can't just say, that's all I'm gonna do, because you will be very, very poor living in your mother's basement. Anybody else? Uh-huh.
Now for the voice actors, both on the directing side and your side, is it common to get it in one take, or do a lot of people have multiple takes?
If you get your people like Brina, or the people that have been around forever, anybody who's here, honestly, we get it in one take a lot of the time, 2 takes most of the time, and then if it takes more than that, it's because there's something either wrong with the script or we're not understanding what the director is saying. But if there's a new person in the booth, or even somebody who has been doing it for a long time but doesn't seem to be intuitive with it, it can take up to 15 takes. It yeah, that's not uncommon at all.
I was just wondering if you had any new information for new One Piece episodes, because I know last year compared to this year, they released maybe 20, and it's an ongoing series, and they're producing more all the time. And
I don't know how many episodes we've picked up for sure. I mean, I know season 4, and hasn't season 5 been recently announced?
It's like 330.
330 was that? 330 episodes were announced,
Yeah,
or
and it's
330 like the number?
The number, but I think as a whole right now, it's like somewhere in the 670 range.
I know, I can tell you that right now we have dubbed about halfway through what they've done in Japan, and they are about halfway through what they intend to do. So we're a quarter of the way through.
12,000 for a while.
It's a lot. So I can't tell you anything you couldn't find on the website, but I will say that we are still recording. I'm recording, in the process of recording right now, and on Monday I have a session. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about doing multiple takes, are there any bloopers that you've done in the past that you just continue to laugh about to this day?
Mike and I laugh all the time. It's kind of hard to come up with one because that's all we do. But I really liked, I hope you're not too young for this. I really liked Luffy is walking through the jungle trying to get out to the beach with the rest of them, and he says, I think he's saying something like, "Hey, I can see light up ahead. I think we're almost out of the jungle." Or I think it was something like that. And Mike had me go, "Welcome to the jungle." What did he, "You're in the jungle, baby. You're gonna die." He had me do that, which obviously I've been doing way too much this weekend. So, Guns N' Roses in One Piece, always.
You said you direct, so have you ever had, you bring in a voice actor, he has the talent, and then he just keeps screwing up off and on, that you just basically have to kick them out, or like...
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens, and there are times when it happens and you can hide it from them. You can say, okay, I think we got everything we need, and they don't know that the character goes on. And then there are times when I've actually had to recast because it wasn't working out. And, I mean, you gotta do what you have to do for the property, so I always prefer not to do that, but...
How often?
Oh, very seldom. With the bits, I recast them frequently. I would say like 5 every contract, every set of 4 episodes, I would say. But with a major role, that might have happened twice ever. In the back?
Me? Okay, I have 2 questions kind of. Do you have any favorite moments from season 4 in One Piece? And between the break that you guys did, was it like hard coming back? Like, or were you did you see the character in any different perspective now,
Yeah.
a year off kind of?
When I came back, I had forgotten how much I loved Luffy. So like the first week back, all I could do was giggle and be like, I love him so much, I'm so glad we're back, yay! And then he fought, and then I was like, oh, I forgot how much I hate him! So there are elements of both. My absolute favorite character in the entire series so far is Foxy. So when we came in and that was the first thing that we did, I was so happy. He's hilarious, and Jonathan Brooks is so good as him. So any of the points where he sees him in sees Foxy in costume and thinks he's really his sister, I think that's really, really funny. But Afro Luffy is also great.
Yeah.
And Usopp has some stuff coming up where he sings
Afro Luffy
that make me really, really happy as well.
As a director, are there certain qualities in a voice actor that just make you go like, yes, I love working with this person?
Absolutely, and there are many, many qualities. For any actor that you know, I can give you the one that's like, oh, I'm so glad you have this quality. There's the Monica, who is just happy to do whatever you want her to do. She's very easy to get in the booth. She does it the first time, and if it's not right for whatever reason, which is seldom with Monica, then you give her direction, she changes it, and she's happy to change it. She's just happy. She's also my best friend, so that might be. But, and then Lucy, I love the fact that she can do anything. You could give her an old grandfather and she would be able to do it. She just has amazing range, so that's awesome. with Barry Ganzel, who's in a lot of series in kind of minor roles. I love that he always surprises me. There are a lot of sentences that you can only hear one way as a director. You're like, okay, this is the way they're gonna say it. And he'll come out with something that's like, I had never thought of saying it that way, and yes, that is exactly how you should say it. That's awesome. So surprises are fantastic. That's another one. Easy to work with is huge. Let's go with people who haven't asked yet.
When you're recording, you have the video running. Do you ever get distracted by what's happening on screen?
Sure. Like if it's something really dramatic that you didn't know was going to happen, I've done that before. Or sometimes there will be something going on in the foreground that you're in the background of, and you're supposed to be voicing the person in the background, but all you can concentrate on is the fact that this person's shaking maracas in the foreground. Yeah, sure. That happens. You know.
Oh, yes. Going back to that Sailor Moon idea where you were sort of considering directing it, if it's at all possibly, who would you cast yourself as?
Oh, I don't know. And I don't even want to say anything because if I do get it if it ever comes to Funimation and I got it, I wouldn't want to be pigeonholed into that just because I said I was. And I would hold auditions. I'm not that kind of director. I wouldn't be like, I choose the lead. I don't do that ever. I try not to cast myself. So I would hold auditions, and if I did the best at something, then I'd give myself that role. I think actually as a director that is something I am good at is being objective. I don't listen to it and go, I was the best. Yes?
Actually, I was wondering, how often do you typically meet your fellow voice actors or like meeting at conventions, like one of the rare meeting opportunities?
Because I'm a director, I get to meet them all the time. So that's kind of cheating. But if you mean somebody like Trina's here, and she doesn't direct and she doesn't write, so she has no way of knowing people outside of it. And there are definitely people that she doesn't know that she's been in multiple series with. Conventions are hugely helpful with that. I meet a lot of people through conventions.
Yeah. Does notice any voice actors seems to have a huge variety of embarrassing stories about each other?
Yeah.
Like, kind of when they're all drinking buddies or something.
At Funimation, it really is a social thing. Those are all my friends. The people that I hang out with are the people at Funimation. I'm there all day long. So, I mean, Trina and Jamie, if I had bridesmaids in my wedding, which I don't, thank God, they would be them. So, yeah.
Has there ever been like an anime series you've done where you just felt like, even though you've gotten the role, you didn't feel personally like maybe your voice was the right one for it, or
Sure.
I don't know, like you felt like this cast?
Yeah, I've definitely felt miscast a couple of times, and sometimes it turns out to be right, and sometimes it turns out like, yeah, you're right, this is going to be okay. I'm trying to think of one that I'd feel comfortable saying, because I don't want to, like, say something's bad that is out there.
No, it's not that it was bad, but you just
Right.
felt that you didn't, you know.
Right. I don't feel terribly comfortable doing really young roles. So like with young Urza in Fairy Tale when I did my own character.
I don't think it was that bad, though.
Good. Good. And that's just one of those things where I don't feel terribly comfortable
Yeah, because
doing
I've been just watching those episodes, so
Uh-huh.
I never felt that there was anything wrong with it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
You
What?
learn.
Is there somebody else?
You learn.
I thought I heard a question. I mean, I can leave.
Okay, last questions. Okay. So when you said that you're trying to like dub a new series, or and you want to like bring it to the States, and you say you had to do research normally by actually like, watching the series in Japanese. What if you get you want to dub one of those series with like hundreds of already episodes? Do you have to watch them all?
You really are supposed to, yeah. When Mike got One Piece, he just started at the beginning and trucked through it. And he wasn't all the way through by the time he started directing, but he had to watch all of those episodes.
Do you sometimes just like spend months watching before you even start writing? Just like
you don't really frequently have that option. Like it's not like they're gonna take a month off so that you can get caught up. Because you don't always find out in time to do that, so you just watch as much as you can before. Shauna is another example of that. There's a million episodes to watch, and are you or are you not? So, just get to pick.
What happens when you've got a character and you really want to cast somebody, but they're in a group, like they're in sort of the Los Angeles group or the Vancouver group or the New York group. Do you try to reach out to them, or do you just cast whoever's local that you think is the next best thing?
You can try. Mike is really good about doing that and making sure that people, from, like Johnny and Bosch, will bring Johnny and Bosch in. But it does become kind of a hassle because frequently you have to make sure that they are making enough money when they come to you in order to pay for the ticket and the hotel while they're there and the car while they're there. So if you have a character in mind for them, you have to know that that character is going to make them enough money to make it worth their while. Also, we get series in 6-episode parts for the most part. So if I cast Johnny and Bosch in a lead in my series, then he has to come back every time we have a new 6-episode set. And who knows, maybe by the end, he only has 2 hours worth of work at the end because he died. So, and then how does he pay? I have to go around to other directors and be like, can anybody use Johnny and Bosch, please? So that we can have enough to call him in for. So you have to be cautious about doing that. There's also union rules. I mean, there are people who are in the union in LA or in Vancouver and they can't come in for that reason, or it makes it more difficult for them. So you just have to play it by ear and see how much it's worth to you to get him in.
This is going to sound a little bit morbid, but what do you do when you have a voice actor who suddenly just inexplicably just sort of dies and then you're
That
sort of left
happens.
in the role?
Yeah, I mean, and it can happen without death. It can happen like they move away and they're no longer available. But Randy Tallman is an example of that. Randy Tallman died, and he was in the middle of, I think, 3 or 4 series, and one or two of them, he was early enough in the series that they could go back and re-record it with somebody else, and a couple of them, he just had to be replaced. And that certainly happens. And it happens when somebody moves to LA and they have so much work that they're not able to come back. It recently happened with Jackie Ross, who plays Mayuri in Steins Gate. That's her first thing she ever did for anime dubbing. She's fantastic. I found her, I was so excited about her. I was so excited. I shared her with everybody. I was like, you have to use her. And so 2 other people cast her. And she got a gig writing for Valve in Seattle. So she can't turn that down. So she's off writing for Valve in Seattle, and they had to, I think Chris Bevins had to replace 17 hours worth of work for her. So, I mean, you know, it's, what are you gonna do? Thankfully, I mean, we had episode 25 left for Steins Gate when she left, and so she had to find a studio in Seattle that was willing to deal with us on the price, and then go to Seattle, or she was in Seattle, go to that studio. I sent her a scratch track of her character for that episode, and she just did the lines the way I read them. Like, it was a really small, little, tiny hard tack for a tiny little bit of period for that episode 25 to get out. But it was totally worth it because she sounds phenomenal. She's so good. She was gonna be the new Jeremy, and now it's all ruined. Yeah.
What advice do you have for somebody who's young and trying to get into voice acting?
My advice would be similar to what Michael Tatum said yesterday, if you heard that panel. Be an actor first, worry about being a voice actor second. When we look for voice actors, we look for people who are actors, who can act, and if you have a good voice, terrific. So I would say get as much experience as you can doing community theater or auditioning for student films in the area. Since those are non-paying and people will take whoever they can get a lot of experience doing that, and then maybe they'll meet people who will bring you into more paying roles, professional theater or movie gigs, independent films around the area that are paying. And then try to work yourself up to where you can get an agent and go into it through that. I think that if you're just setting out to be an anime voice actor, the only person I've ever heard of that working for is Micah Solosad. That's the only person that's ever worked for in the history of the world. Yes.
Okay, this is kind of really random, but something I've always wanted to know the answer to. What happens if you get sick and you're like in the middle of recording a show and all of a sudden you get like laryngitis or strep throat or something and you
It sucks. They have to stop. If you lose your voice, you can't record. There's nothing you can do. So that has been known to put a halt on production. Like, things have gone late to print because somebody was sick. Jeremy Lee, poor girl, got like vocal nodes, and she had to be on vocal rest. She couldn't talk for like a month. So, and she's in everything. So yeah, that put a halt on production for a little while. And then if you just get a cold and you sound really terrible, but it's going to print, chances are they'll ask you to come in anyway and just sacrifice your voice for that moment. So you try to muscle through it. If you have a lot of time, and like if I'm in the middle of Steins Gate and I know that I have weeks left to record and Trina is sick, I'll be like, Trina, and this happened. I'll be like, Trina, just go home. You sound terrible. Go home. You can come back next week when you feel better. So it just depends on the urgency of the episodes.
If you were to voice an original Western title and they were going to bring it to Japan, who would you want voicing your role?
Which Japanese seiyuu would I want? Oh, I don't know that I'm familiar enough with them. There is one seiyuu that I've played a bunch of her characters. It's the girl who plays Mitsuki in Rumbling Hearts, and I've met her. But whoever that is, I've played her in several different animes, so I feel like maybe we have a close enough. Are you looking it up? Is that what's happening? So maybe her. I think she does a good job.
Is there a method to the order of your dubbing? If you do it one at a time?
Oh, that's a good question. He asked if there's a method to the order we call people in since we record one at a time. Really, your job as a director is to keep your booth full at all times so that there's no empty space, because empty booth space is money lost for the company. What's your name?
Tomoko Ishibashi.
Tomoko Ishibashi. There you go. Where was I? Okay. We try to keep the booth full. So Tara Williams is our talent coordinator. She's in charge of calling all of the actors that we have requested and getting them in and fitting it together like a puzzle piece. Like, okay, I know that she needs 3 hours of Trina, and Trina can come in on Wednesday, which means that we have 4 hours left of the day, which means I could get Michael Tatum or I could get 4 bit people for an hour each. So she has to put it all together, which is really hard. So mostly we just give it to her and be like, however you can fit them all in, great. But there are times when I'll request that somebody be pushed to the end because they don't record very well until they have other people to respond to. That happens, and that's sometimes it's not even people who are new, or it could be really good voice actors. They just do a better job responding to somebody. And then there are times when I think this person is so important to what everybody else is doing. I would really like to have, like Michael Tatum, I'd really like to have Okabe in for all of Steins Gate in the beginning because he talks to everybody, so it'd be great for everybody to get to respond to him. And he wrote it, so he's really familiar with it. So there can be a little bit to the madness, but mostly it's just whatever Tara can get in.
I was wondering, as a director, are there certain storylines that you prefer? Anything that's like more fun or more cerebral or more story-driven?
I tend to like the cerebral ones. I like the ones that require thought. But I only like the ones that require thought if, when you think them out, they make sense. Because there are times when it'll be like, you get something from Japan, and it's like, oh, this is deep. You haven't thought it through, have you? That doesn't make sense. Those are super frustrating. So I guess I tend to like any show that has a very small cast. The more people you have, one piece, the more you have to worry about casting people who are not necessarily as great at it. So you have to, oh my gosh. Mike has to just dig people. He goes to Sonic and gets something and is like, your voice sounds good, come in and record. He has to cast all new characters all the time. I would not want to do that. So I like things that are, a good chunk, 26 episodes, not 12, but 26, but have a tiny little cast, like Steins Gate, which is my theme for the day.
You've mentioned Michael J. Tatum and like a lot of Veronica Taylor and such. Is there anybody who attended this fan expo that you would definitely use?
I've used all of them that I can. Veronica, she's in New York, and I think she might be union. I don't know. I'd use her if I got the opportunity, but I haven't. But Tatum and Jamie Markey and Trina Nishimura all work for Funimation. They're all friends of mine, and they are all in everything I do. Trina and Michael were my leads for Steins Gate, and Jamie is my lead in Panty and Stocking, so if that helps.
Well, just one more thing. You mentioned the importance of being objective for directing and such, and that you basically, you said yourself that your best quality is your objectivity.
Yeah.
Let's say you had, this is kind of hypothetical here,
Okay.
but you had 3 people for a specific role.
Uh-huh.
Wendy Lee, Veronica Taylor,
Okay.
and anyway, let's see. If it was for a specific role, like say, have you ever seen Bleach? No? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Never mind. Sorry. I was going somewhere, but I lost it. Sorry.
Okay, if you think you can pick another series, you can keep trucking forward.
One Piece?
Was your question, how do I pick between them?
Yeah, how do you pick?
It can be a number of things. Sometimes it'll be like, let's say it is very evenly matched between Jeremy and Lucy Christian. If it's really, really equally matched, I'm more likely to cast Jeremy because she lives in my city and she is easy to get in. Lucy, who I cast all the time, so I'm sure she wouldn't be offended by me saying this. Lucy lives in Houston, so it's a little, and she just had another baby, so it's a little bit harder to get her in. But then there are some roles that it's like, well, the only person that can do that is Lucy. So you bite the bullet and do it. And then there are some times when you have 2 people that are up for the same role, and one of them is really, really new, and one of them has been doing this for a really long time. And that can go either way. Either I want the veteran because this is going to be so much easier if I use Michael Tatum, or it can be, well, Austin Tyndall is new and he hasn't done much, and so people are going to really want to hear his voice because people are tired of us casting the same people over and over again. So Austin Tyndall gets the part, you know. So it just depends.
It's great to shake along.
Yeah. Anybody else?
So where do most recording take place? Like in Toronto, in America?
In America, definitely. Right now, the most anime recording is in Dallas-Fort Worth, in Texas, where I live. Funimation just has the most coming out.
When Funimation, this might be sort of outside your area of expertise, but when Funimation releases something on Blu-ray, do they usually like to do their own restoration, or do they get the HD version from Japan?
I'm pretty sure that.
I mean, I know they did their own.
Yeah, I can only say
Z.
DBZ. That's the only one that I know of. We did our own restoration for DBZ. That's because they weren't doing it in Japan, I think. I think if Japan already has Blu-ray readily available, we would want that. We want their best video that we could get. But DBZ, that was an expensive restoration, man. That was hundreds and hundreds of hours of people working round the clock. They had a department hired just for that. That took a long time. Yeah.
Okay, show specific question. What was your favorite episode or part or whatever of Fractal?
Fractal is so pretty.
Oh, it is.
You know, I don't even think it's that amazing of a thing. I liked the beginning. I really liked the setup of where you got to see the Dobbles for the first time. You got to see his parents, and then you got to see him ride through the Irish countryside, which is weird for a futuristic show. And then you got to see the market where all the futuristic stuff was happening, but in kind of a country flea market sort of way. I just really loved the setup. It was almost Miyazaki. It felt really like, it just is so beautifully animated, and the music, and it was also subtly done. So I just liked the feeling of that before all the shit went down. Yeah.
What was your favorite part of not just directing, but like what was your favorite part of being a part of Full Metal?
My favorite part of being a part of Full Metal Alchemist. On that one, actually, directing. I usually say acting is my favorite part, but I think I was so invested in that show because I was writing it and directing it and acting in it and being line producer. I was so involved that I relished having control over every little thing, you know? And I was really new to it. That was the first show I directed fully. I mean, Mike McFarlane directed it with me, but it was the first show that I was at the beginning of for the direction. So I think directing it, and specifically directing the episodes that are my favorites, like the Nina arc I liked.
Oh, wait, so which ones were your favorite episodes?
Nina Alexander, that
Yeah.
whole 6, 7, and 8 I
Aw.
directed, and that one just was like,
That's just funny.
And I liked directing 13, that was fun, the Flame versus Full Metal.
Yeah.
Going on the current topic of favorites, if you watch any anime outside of the stuff you have to work with or work on, what are your favorites?
I haven't seen too many outside of the Funimation stuff because I've been working for them for 9 years and I've done nothing but that. So that means that I'm 8 hours a day doing, guaranteed, working on Funimation stuff.
Well, it could still be a Funimation project. It's just maybe not something that you specifically are doing.
Like I say, I've been working on stuff 8 hours a day, and sometimes 16 hours a day. So it's really I've almost solely seen my stuff. But I will say that I watched Fruits Basket before I started full time working at Funimation. So that would probably be my favorite. In the back, yeah.
Has there been any instances where people have recognized you outside of conventions?
Very, very few, but the funniest one happened just recently, actually. I was at, my fiance hosts trivia at bars. He's like an MC for trivia at like a stand-up comedian kind of thing. And so I went to watch him at this local pub, and my waitress, I ate and then I paid with my credit card, and my waitress brought my credit card back and she's like, "Are you Colleen Clinkenbeard?" I was like, "That's my name." She's like from anime? I was like, "Yes, and how weird is this?" She's like, "Oh my gosh." And so then my fiance went home and got on Facebook, and the waiter from that bar is a friend of his. So he noticed a post from the waiter on the waitress's page, because she had commented, "I met Colleen Clinkenbeard from DBZ today," or no, "I met Colleen Clinkenbeard today," and then the waiter had put, or the bartender had put under it, "You mean from DBZ?" And he didn't know that the bartender was a fan. And then under that, somebody had posted, "I just signed her up for her bridal registry," and she never said anything. So it was like 3 people all in a row that we had no reason to know, and it was really weird. Also, that means that the bridal registry person knows who I am. It's weird. Yes.
How does Funimation choose which shows it decides to license?
There's a whole acquisitions department. Adam Zellner, I think, is the guy who runs it. And I think he has the best job. I think that's an awesome job, to get to go over there and be like, "We'll take this one." Sometimes it's a show that they lobby for really hard. We really want One Piece, and we'll go after One Piece really hard. And then the person over there who's licensing it to us can say, "Okay, you can have One Piece for this price, and then you have to take all of these titles." So if they want to really push titles that they have that are smaller over in America, they can shove them at you under the guise of another project. Which is how we got Tsubasa, surprisingly enough. Yeah, so, I mean, we luck out sometimes. That's how we got Steins Gate.
What?
We got Steins Gate because we wanted something else, and Steins Gate's the best show ever! So, I think it's like Guilty Crown or something. Yeah. So, yay. Yeah.
Okay, I know you can't talk about anything you're working on, but is there anything you've been working on that you're particularly psyched about?
Steins Gate! I had three in a row that I started directing Fractal, and I was like, "This is my best show since Full Metal Alchemist. I love it." And then I started directing Panty and Stocking, and I was like, "This is the best show since Full Metal Alchemist. I love it!" And then I started directing Steins Gate, and I was like, "Oh my god! This is even better than the other 2. So I got 3 in a row I got so lucky on. And then other than Funimation stuff, Borderlands 2 is about to hit.
Woo! Yes!
I could not be more stoked about that. For you guys, the writing on that one is so incredible, and it's all because of this guy named Andrew. Anthony, oh my gosh, Anthony Birch. Anthony Birch is amazing, and he actually wrote like a plot. So I play Lilith and Tannis again, and then look for some DLC, and I might have another character that I'm excited about.
Gotta love Gearbox.
Yes, I do. Bless them.
How does it go from like the Japanese to the English writing?
We have translators in-house who take the Japanese and translate it into English, and then we have ADR script adapters who take the translation and make it into more colloquial English so that it sounds like people are actually saying it and it doesn't sound like a translation, and make it fit into the mouth flaps. So there's a whole process.
You mentioning working on Borderlands, and do most video game studios kind of outsource to like bigger studios to get for their voice actors, or do they do the auditions themselves?
I don't know much about the video game studios in LA, but I believe that most of them have their own recording studios. I don't know that for sure though. You should ask like Laura Bailey or Travis Willingham if you see them at a convention. I would ask them. They would know more about that than I do. People in DFW do it a little bit differently because they're smaller. They're more boutique. Gearbox is more of a boutique sort of video game company. So they outsource to Okratron in this instance, which is Chris Sabat's studio.
Is there like a difference on like recording wise, like between anime and video games, like how it goes and finding the voice for the role and everything like that?
It's a huge difference between how you record for them or how you find the role.
Just kind of both, like how you figure out the voice of the character that you're trying to do and all that.
It's totally different. Video game acting is just a lot more freeing. When you go in, they show you a picture of what they're thinking about for the character, and then you get to come up with the voice. And if you want her to have like a crazy laugh or a little bit of a tick or a British accent, you can come up with whatever you want. And if they like it, they'll say go ahead and keep it. And you're not stuck with the mouth movements. So it's just a lot more free. With anime, not only are you stuck with the mouth movements, so you can't give her like little ticks, but you also are sometimes trying to be pretty close to the Japanese voice. So there's that element to consider too. Video game acting for that reason is a little bit more fun.
What about for like Dragon Age though?
Dragon Age, it was so specific because I was definitely trying to mimic her voice, and she has the craziest accent on earth. So yeah, that definitely happened.
Speaking of trying to match the voice, what are you going to do about Frankie for One Piece?
Thankfully, I don't have to do anything with it because that's Mike's show. Mike's already cast Frankie, hasn't he? Frankie showed up in one of the earlier episodes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he already showed up in the video games, so that's been cast for a while.
So who are you in Full Metal?
I play Riza Hawkeye, Rose Thomas, directed half the original series, and I wrote some of it.
Can you do a demonstration of like your favorite character?
Of Riza from that, or of my favorite character ever?
Your favorite in Full Metal.
In Full Metal? Sure. You know your flame attack is useless in the rain.
Are there any difficulties when something passes from one studio to another? Like if let's say whatever's left of ADV does the first season of something, and then Funimation either acquires it from them or they get the second season. I know this happened with a few shows like Sergeant Frog.
Sergeant Frog, yeah, and Initial D. And is
there any kind of difficulty in recasting, or can you get the same people, like the same actors, or what?
It kind of depends. If it's all people from ADV, people from Houston, then it's a lot easier to get them. I think we have a show coming up that was originally ADV, and I would obviously want to try to get the people that were already cast. But if it's people from Vancouver or people from LA, then it's just too cost prohibitive. We're not going to be able to do that. So you have a choice. You can either voice match, or you can have people do it the way they would have done it originally. And I think most of us tend to go with the one where you get to be as good of a character as you can be, rather than trying to mimic somebody, because it's so limiting that you end up not being as three-dimensional as you could be. So, One Piece is a good example of that. Yes, we hear you. One Piece is a good example of that because you get everybody wanted to have their own character, to put their own stamp on it, and to be as good as they could, rather than trying to match something that some fans have issues with in the first place anyway. Yeah.
So I have a question about translating the Japanese to the English. So because obviously Japanese, they pronounce things a lot differently. Some words translate to English would be a lot shorter than the Japanese pronunciation. So what happens if you just need to say something really simple like the juice, right? But the mouth flap is taking forever, right? Because the
That
Japanese.
happens all the time.
What is the resolution for that?
It depends on the writer, and it's always something similar. Either you can add their name, would you pass the juice, Ritsuku? Or you can say, hey, would you mind passing the juice? You just add in words that sound colloquial. Actually, that can be kind of helpful in making it sound more natural, because it gives us an opportunity to throw in words that Americans can say anyway. That happens on almost a per line basis.
Yeah, that's something that I've always wanted to know.
It's a lot harder the other direction. It's really hard when it takes us a long time to say it in English, but in Japanese they can say it in a couple of syllables. That sucks, because you have so much information that you have to get in, and you have this much time. So in that instance, frequently we'll take up a whole scene, rather than taking up just when they said it in the original Japanese. So that's a lot harder.
Actually, you mentioned Dragon Age earlier. Have you worked with BioWare before? And so, the headquarters are here in Canada, so that means you have to fly around all over the place for this? Do you work with them?
I haven't worked with BioWare before, and I've never flown anywhere to do a video game, so I didn't have any experience with them. And actually, I was only an actor in Dragon Age, so Mike was the one who had more contact with them.
Okay.
Mike McFarlane. In the very, very back.
Have you learned any Japanese from being dubbed?
Little bits here and there.
Can you do
know?
it?
I mean, Nani, how can you miss Nani? And from meeting people, so sometimes meeting Japanese guests, I know hajimashite and sumimase, and I know things that I can be polite with. There was one con where Monica and I were hanging out with a bunch of Japanese guests, and they had this little book that had the picture of something, and then it said the word in both English and Japanese, and so they were pointing at things all night. And we were just sitting there, and the drunker we got, the more we were looking up things like bikini line, which was actually one of them. So yeah, I pick them up here and there, but you only remember the ones that you hear every day. Brother, I heard a lot in Japanese.
I'm just wondering, say you don't want to get into like the actual like acting portion, but you want to get into like the business house, so dealing with like that kind of thing. What kind of route would you suggest?
Which side of the business?
So let's say like the licensing, that kind of dealing.
Licensing, you have to own something in order to license it.
But like dealing with licensing issues, like like being able to bring it here to like Canada.
They actually they advertise for those jobs. Funimation puts those jobs up on like Monster. So if you go to one of the job sites where people are looking for jobs, you will find a Funimation job. Brand management, right now I think they're trying to find an assistant brand manager or something. So they'd be looking for somebody who has a marketing background. And they just look for people who have the most experience they can find. Yes?
I had to ask you with the Ghostbusters video game, did you get to meet any of the main actors?
I didn't. No, I wasn't in the booth at the same time as any of them. I heard stories, but I didn't get to meet them. No. That killed my throat, that whole thing.
So you directed the original Fullmetal Alchemist. Did you not direct the Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood?
I didn't direct Brotherhood. We decided to just do one director on that one, and I segued by line producing the Conqueror of Shambhala movie while Mike directed it, and then by the time we got to Brotherhood, I was on other things and he was doing Brotherhood. So.
Did you prefer voicing Risa in Fullmetal Alchemist or Brotherhood?
I guess I would say in the original, because I was so much closer to that project, I haven't even seen all of Brotherhood. So I would say that one just because I was more familiar with it, I cared about it, it was near dear to my heart. Yeah.
Do you ever had any problems with having things being lost in translation? Say trying to get the point across or story across, where there might also be the same problem with getting all the words and all the right.
Yeah, translation can be a bitch. I would say every now and again something happens where I feel like maybe in the end it went out wrong. Like something got misinterpreted along the way and something made it to DVD, and that probably isn't what they actually intended it to be talking about. That happens very rarely, but sometimes it does. Usually the Japanese would catch it on the way out. Like it would happen and then somebody in the QC would catch it and be like, I think we need to double check this.
So there is someone in Japan in the original dubbing that.
Usually they read over the scripts. They'll read the scripts and see what they think about that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if I can come up with any examples of something like that happening. A lot of times I'd go to the brand manager and ask if there's something I'm not sure about. And our translators are so awesome. Our translators provide notes, like if there's a festival of some sort, an Obi festival or whatever, they'll provide notes in the side about what that festival is in Japan and what it celebrates and what the date is, and they really go overboard so that we have all the information at our fingertips.
If you were to cosplay as anyone, anything ever, who would you be?
If nobody would ever see it except for me, it would be Yuko.
Oh, wow.
Because her costumes are so fun. But only if nobody's ever going to see it. If people were going to see it, then I would say Rin, because she wears business suits. That'd be easy. Anybody else? I think we might be towards the end. We have 8 minutes. Yeah.
I've been wondering, during the vampire, in the Japanese version, she mostly says know your place. By the English version, you go to season 2, she mostly says learn your place. Why is that?
Oh gosh, I couldn't tell you. That's a translation thing. I haven't even read the original Japanese, so I would have to ask somebody about that. Sorry.
How did you like working on Romeo x Juliet?
I really liked that one. I thought that Patrick and Michael did a fantastic job with the scripts. They were really true to the Shakespearean genre. I mean, it just sounded right all the way through. And I mean, I've never heard two such highfalutin people talk to each other. You should hear them; it's hilarious. But I liked my character, and I felt like it was somebody that I actually would have been called on to play had that been a play. So I thought it was fun. It's always good to record on something that has good writing. That's my favorite. Hello.
Yes. I want to hear a little example, a preview of your Marjorie dog voice, since it's going to be on DVD. 2 comes on DVD.
She sounds like every large-breasted woman you've ever heard me play. Except she's drunk a lot of the time. Stupid Marcocious.
That's right, you guys. And I don't know, do you think there will be Canada third for Funimations?
I don't know. It depends on if you guys buy the first 2.
Well, there's going to be a lot of lines, I should say, Colin, because when I looked at the English stuff, there's going to be a lot of flake faces involved.
Yep. There's a lot of casting involved, too.
Yeah.
2 people had to really be familiar with that show.
Marjorie and Kasune will have some kind of relationship.
I know. Anybody else? Oh yeah, my favorite is in New Zealand. I've been to the New Zealand Con twice. And I've been to Australia, the UK, and Montreal, Alberta, Vancouver. We turned my last New Zealand trip, it was in June, and we turned it into our honeymoon before the wedding. Anybody else? It's kind of a good ending place. We only have a few minutes left, so. All right, thanks you guys.